I want to pay tribute to the women that worked alongside of me. I'll start with those who worked the least but still were powerful. Mitzi Lang worked with me, and Melissa Pierce worked with me. Jean's daughter, who I took on as my daughter, Cassandra, worked with me. And then the two most powerful. And Darlene Benson when we were adding Sages. But Jean and Meadow. So approximately 20 years with Jean and 15 or so with Meadow, where we worked together. The strength, the knowing, the awareness, the ability to connect added such a strong dimension to my work and the way I worked, and we often complemented each other. Jean was quite sweet and naive and unconditional love and just an angel. Although she could be tough, but it took a lot for her to be tough. It didn't take much for me to be tough. I'm a troublemaker. And sometimes she'd pick up the pieces after I did surgery, psychological point of view. And we just dovetailed.
With the clients?
Yes.
That's
so,
beautiful.
for example, I told in the last podcast, I don't take women out by myself. Only a couple exceptions. Okay. They were people that I trained very well, and we knew each other well.
Yeah.
Because emotions can happen in the world, feelings, and attractions, and it's just better that I take my wife. And that's not suggesting that it's ultimately going to happen. I just feel that the reason I take my wife far beyond is the difference in gender, that a woman will understand a woman in ways that I won't.
Yeah.
Because of their genetics.
Yeah.
So we took couples, families, women out, and for a while, Cass and her then husband, Eric, went with us with families, aftercare, and they came out of treatment, setting up the trust, going back. Couples who, I never took couples out who were struggling. The wilderness is so powerful that it'll stir up the struggle as much as it'll stir up healing. The wilderness is not automatically healing. The wilderness just stirs, okay?
It just moves.
It just moves. You don't know what's going to happen. And, but we took out couples together that we'd already worked with. They're now doing well. This became an enhancement where they would work with their mandalas and set out how they wanted to be with each other and do exercises in the wilderness related to their marriage, as well as related to their individual lives. It was very powerful. And Jean was a master at human communication, and particularly in understanding and caring. And she gave, by her just, talk about attraction connection, just by what she attracted, she gave a solidarity of safety and understanding and beauty, and people watched her and could model by getting in that connection with her ability to love. So they were attracted to her love. The love occurred between the two. They took this away for themselves. Isn't that beautiful? I want to make tribute to Meadow. Meadow is brilliant, and she's the one that came up with, let's put little Post-its and let's give everybody a...
Wow.
the little metallic
model for
models that are
the magnets of their
on them, right?
subpersonalities, yeah.
And she could also track the session. And sometimes in a tough session, she'd put up the stickies of issues before we wound up the session. because Mado and I, even more than Jean and I, did intensives. Jean would not have had the stamina as much as she gave. And Mado would wear out, but boy, she'd be up there with me most of the time. And I have tremendous stamina.
I was 17 when you both did mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And Mado was right there.
Right there.
And she helped with all the stickings.
Oh, it helps with all of it. What a wonderful partner to have, because she also was a lot softer than I. And she could reinterpret something that I stepped on hard and soften it up a bit.
Right.
But if a part was bullshitting me, my bullshit detector would call in, and the sharp parts of my facilitator would. And sometimes Jean would say, you're pretty hard on that client. And I'd say, well, how would you have done it? She'd tell me, oh, okay, next time we'll try your way. But Mado had a sense also of getting the whole picture. And so when I did her mandala in March of 99, I never saw anybody get it so fast and begin using it so quickly.
So cool.
Oh, it was really cool.
Yeah.
She really knew. And it manifested in our own relationship. Perfect example, I brought in a warrior. By the time I'm married to Mado, I take the warrior out of the room. I say, look, the warrior's been tripped here. He only thinks about annihilation and cutting you out a new asshole. So I think I'm going to take him out. And she only followed me once, trying to keep the discussion going. She said, never did that again.
Wow.
She said, I'm never going to do that again. But she also, in her mandala, had a judge, was a Jesuit priest. And she would announce to me when the judge was out. And I'd say, okay, I'm out of here. She said, yeah, you better be. Because her judge and my warrior would destroy the relationship in 5 minutes.
Right.
So we made sure they didn't do conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Now, her judge came out less than my warrior. That's just a fact of phenomena, mathematics. And I never got to the point I could take him out easy. Always a few over the shoulder. I'm walking on. And these guys, my lover, and my father, and they're all taking me out. And, bitch, you know I'm right. And I got to throw a couple turds over the shoulder. And she laughed.
Right.
Because she knew that they were throwaways and that the rest of me was not going to keep tolerating that.
Right.
And then she would say, what do you think this one's worth? And I'd say, about an hour. I'll be back in an hour with the facilitator and the lover and the father. And
so you were laughing at it.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both Jean and Mado had tremendous intuitive kind of knowing phenomena. They weren't real knowers in the sense that they could see an event, but they were highly intuitive, and they both were highly sensitive to picking up feeling tones. That was wonderful to work with them. And each had their own style. And I'm not comparing them. They actually had that same, but in different ways. Mado is more logical. I'll make a comparison. And Jean would be more feeling emotional. But they both could get just as equal. What I loved about Mado was her ability to integrate and to see very directly how parts work with each other and how to carry on conversations. So it was wonderful. I'll now tell a couple of stories in relationship to working with them. Let me start. The student that I told you that started doing the tapes around children who were traumatized, she went to see her medicine man on the Navajo Nation, and he said, you need to pick out someone that has worked with you and knows you really well and do a vision quest with them. So she called me up and I said, yeah, Gene and I'd be happy to. So we did the prep work for the Vision Quest. And Sycamore Canyon parallels Oak Creek Canyon. Sycamore is dry, Oak Creek is fed by streams and that come out of the mountains as well as springs. And Sycamore only has a couple springs. So Sycamore spends more time being dry. And Oak Creek is going all the time. Just depends how high. So we took her out on this little edge of Sycamore Canyon, which would be on the eastern side of Sycamore, and that would be on the Williams side. I'm sorry, the Flagstaff side, and the west would be on the Williams side. So we were south of Flagstaff and south of Rogers Lake, which is west of Flagstaff, and directly down there, and we put her on a small little spring so she could get water easy.
For the quest?
I'm sorry?
For the quest?
For the quest. And of course then we stand up a communication rock, so.
Can you explain what a quest is for
Yes.
people that don't know?
People have been going into the wilderness or going into certain kinds of ceremonies since early recorded time. And the idea of a vision quest is to call for a new vision and or to expand upon one you may have
Alone.
or to say goodbye.
Right? Typically by yourself.
Typically by yourself. There are those that go in group, and then there are kinds of passages that are similar to Vision Quest. For example, the Charlotte Island First Nation people have a ceremony when a young girl is coming into menses. They take her out at the nighttime and they take her out on a boat and then they put her in the water. So it's cold, and they've got fires and blankets and robes waiting for her, and that's her initiation into womanhood. And so she swims in, and then they warm her and do dances and ceremonies around coming into womanhood. Most vision quests are alone, and you create them yourselves. I've done many of them for myself, and will continue till I die, going out. And it's a nice time. It's a little bit like a snake shedding its skin every year, and you get a little update or get new skin. It doesn't always have to be that dramatic. Sometimes it's more mild. And I differentiate that between that and just hanging in the wilderness. Sometimes I just go to hang out for a week or two. And I have no agenda. Sometimes I go out with the purpose of deep fasting. So at any rate, she's all set for it. Any other questions about the quest? So,
No, I think that's good.
Good. And we keep checking on the notes. She's doing well. And we come on the last day before she's had time to put out the note, and I'm a little curious why she didn't put it out. And I thought, well, she knew we were coming, so she didn't put out a note. We get there and she's up in a sycamore tree. Not a sycamore, cottonwood tree. And, what are you doing up there? She said, a cougar just came to visit me. And he came a couple times. And I said, so what did you do the first time? She said, well, I yelled at him. And he ran away. And then he came back and I threw my water bottle. And he went away a little bit, but then he came back and I climbed up in the tree and then he's gone. Hasn't come back. I said, well, I do have to tell you, the tree is the worst place you could possibly do. Your best bet is throwing things at him on the ground. In the tree, you're just you're lunch.
You're just bait hanging there.
That lion can be in that cougar can be in the tree and down with your body parts where you can wink an eye. So
she didn't know that.
No, she didn't know that.
Yeah.
She'd also set up the 4 directions with her fetishes, and one of them was missing. And her medicine man had said to her, when you go out, you are going to be frightened. Do not give in to your fear. Walk through your fear. So for her, climbing up in the tree was the way she could walk through it after yelling and throwing the water bottle. And I said, did you find the part missing in your 4 directions? No. I said, well, could well be the bear's gone and the cougar's your new west. I think it was the west that was missing. And we talked and integrated that. And we integrated what her vision was about, the second half of her life, and what she was going to be doing, and how she's going to be expressing it. And obviously worked her mandala. And then went with the new phenomena about embracing the cougar, embracing the cat, and into her mandala.
Wow.
And then we gave her a bunch of assignments that she took home with her and then reported back. So sometimes the wilderness visits you very directly and has a major impact on your vision quest.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And I was so glad that Gene and I did that together. Mado and I did some wonderful intensives where we would go to them and spend 2 days, and sometimes where they would come to us. Now the intensives were moderate priced. There were others that did them higher than we charged, but I didn't decide, I felt like we could charge a fair fee. But a lot of people couldn't afford them, so we would break the charges down according to what they could pay. But many people had lots of money and they could pay the full fee. And it was wonderful to have them for 2 or 3 days. No place to run and hide. What happens in an hourly session is that the hour's over and then you start to get down to business, then you go home and come back next week. I hated therapy that way. I loved intensives. So most of the time, even when I did work, I worked 2 hours at a time. And sometimes longer, sometimes less. I loved intensives the best because you could get so much done.
Well, a lot of times you don't even really get into it until after an hour.
Exactly. And a lot of people purposely don't get into it. Right. It's, subjects or issue or things they don't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that point, a woman came to see me. I'm not sure I told this in a podcast or not. I don't believe I did. It's the one who went I sent her to Seattle. She was suicidal.
Oh,
Do you remember that? Okay.
I don't think you did.
I worked with her, and she had suicidal ideation, but hadn't quite made up her mind. And I will stay with someone while they still are going back and forth. But I'm not going to work with someone that's made up their mind, and now we're just talking about how you're going to do it. I don't want to facilitate their process, okay?
Yeah, right.
I believe in life, and therefore they have a right to kill themselves, but not on my watch.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I said, anything you want to do before you make a decision. She said, I'm going to go to Seattle. I said, well, go. Get a bus. She said, I can't afford it. I said, hitchhike. She said, well, somebody's liable to hurt me. I said, oh, it's okay if you hurt yourself, but not okay if they hurt you. And we laughed, and she got a bus ticket. She went off, she came back.
She just understood you.
Yeah, somebody's liable to hurt me. She came back, and she opened up. She'd been married, had children, she was divorced, and she still was not acting out, but she had been a closet lesbian since she was a teenager, but went along with culture. And
wow.
we then really worked and worked until she felt safe enough to come out. Had I not worked with her before, I would have immediately referred her to a lesbian psychotherapist. But since we'd done so much work already, and she felt so trusting at this point now, I finished the work, and she went on to get a master's degree and worked with young women who wanted to come out with their lesbian genetic phenomena. Amazing?
Yeah.
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 So, sometimes people don't tell you what's really bothering them. They go weeks and months, and then finally it really comes. And it took a trip to Seattle to unleash all that. Being alone and going through her life and going over all the work we did. So you already are into process. You're not in outcome. The reason I tell this story is because I don't give guarantees. I don't say you'll be good or bad or bad. I just say, here's the process. And they do all the work anyway, because they're talking to the parts of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing happens in the wilderness. They're going to be, and as soon as we get out in the wilderness, I send them out to find natural things to make their mandala. And they put it together. We work with it every day, right there. Okay? And restock if it gets flooded or rained away in some way. Okay. With Meadow, because we were mainly doing intensives, and Jean and I did both. With Meadow, I watched her extreme ability to keep the content solid. And she could go back and quote, sometimes from the notes she took, sometimes from the little sticky notes. And we had this guy who was bound and determined to be miserable. Did work and worked. He was there for 2 days. The second day, right in the middle, his soul just finally blurted out that he wanted to be able to love the parts and for them to move away from destruction. So I put him in a trance, and it got validated. He came out of the trance, and the destructive part took over and said his soul never said that. And Meadow whips out the notes. It had only been an hour before, 2 hours before. Reads him verbatim what he said.
Right.
Reads what happened in the trance. She's taken. And that ability to coalesce and to keep the content and to keep the accuracy was an amazing talent of hers. I could do it by memory. She did it and had it right there in front of her.
Right. Right.
So it wasn't my word against.
Right.
She like, there it is.
Right.
Exact word for word.
Right.
So lots of times she would come back and somebody would, blurt something out earlier and then want to deny it later. And she would say, I'd like to say that 20 minutes ago or an hour ago. So where are you? Who's talking right now? And that's the other thing she was good at is that was my profound skill on who's talking right now. And Meadow had that same skill very well down too. And that made the way we worked. Gene would watch more for a feeling change and then nail him.
Uh-huh.
Are you aware you're smiling about that when 2 minutes ago you frowned about it? What happened? What's that?
Right.
You're laughing now and you were crying then?
Right.
And she would help people see how they metamorphose through a set of feelings.
Wow.
So I can't say enough good things about each of them. Gene passed away a year ago at Bluegrass on the 3rd week of June in 2018. And when we did the first podcast up by Lincoln, Bross. I mentioned that we had climbed those together.
Yes.
And then we went down by the lake below them. And when I was reconnoitering, I love to say it that way, when I was reconnoitering Lincoln Bross and gone up there a week before to see if we wanted to shoot there, her energy came. And I felt it. And I felt her that she wanted to say something to Cass. I called Cass, and Cass is a horsewoman, so she was right in the middle of a training with horse people. I said, Dad, I can't talk right now. I said, it's your mother, and she wants you to say hi. I said, okay, hi, Mom. And people around her said, I thought your mother was dead, you know. And she explained later that her crazy father and stepfather, if you want to say it that way, but I believe in father because I was in her life from 17 on, and she just celebrated her 57th birthday. And we were really close. And she did really great work when we did with families and could really identify with the young people as well as when we went out with Eric. And she just had a great sense of having the young people, when we took out a family, be at ease. And one of the most positive things that come out, 1986, we took out a family from Park Place at the end of their treatment, and the kids were ready to go home to be with the family. And we took them out to use exercises to build trust. Okay? So we set up a belay, and then we set up a rappel. And it was a stepfather, but we took the same girl 3 weeks later out with her father. The father and mother had been divorced, so she got to do it with both biological parents as well as her stepdad, who she was currently living with. And she loved her rappel. And Cass got in with her, and the excitement grew. And now you got these, Cass a few years older, 20s. This girl's in her late teens. But the camaraderie around that. And then her stepfather said, I can't do it. I'm too afraid. And so I said, I'll take your place, Dad. And the love and the change and the appreciation and the sweetness that occurred between that stepfather and that young girl was palpable. You could taste it, smell it, see it. And the trust began. So now, when they go back home, that she didn't shame him. She didn't say, nah, you can't do what I can do. None of that. She just said, I'll take your place. And she said, oh, sweetie, would you? I'll feel better if you're up there than me.
Right.
And they laughed and hugged. A simple little thing like rappelling.
Wow.
That's probably it was up 60 feet. And we always made it safe. We did a double safety rope situation. So first rope failed, the rappel failed, we had another one. But the stop them. But the point is that a number of exercises like that, she came out so strong. So instead of him seeing her as sneaking, stealing money out of the family, cookie box, whatever, to get drugs, he's seeing a strong, vibrant woman, clean, and we're ready to welcome back into the home. And that's kind of what those experiences will do. You don't know that it'll come out that way. She could have shamed him.
Mm-hmm.
He could have said, "Oh, I don't want to do that. That's for dummies." But he actually told on himself, "I'm too afraid."
Mm-hmm.
He was willing to admit it. Then to watch them bond, have her sit next to him at the end of the day around the fire, whereas before she sat by her mother. Now she sometimes sat between or on the side of him. And when you can see it and when you can visualize it, it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. People gain strength